Welcome to the Champion Blueprint Podcast, where mindset meets mission.
We're diving into what it really takes to lead, win, and live with purpose.
From NFL locker rooms to boardrooms, it's all about discipline, core values, and the habits that build champions.
Whether you're leveling up in business, life, or leadership, this is your playbook.
Champion your mindset.
Champion your purpose.
Let's go.
It's 2026, Gary, and we are back better than ever. We've been back off of a break, man. We took a little bit off the holidays to spend some time with our family, do some traveling. But I'm glad to be back in the house, man. I'm glad to be back in the studio. It's been a while. What was something that you're excited about that happened over the break holidays? I don't know if it was a gift, something that you gave somebody else that was really exciting, your son, your daughter. What's popping with you that you're really excited to carry over in 2026?
Excited, anxious, nervous, all wrapped into one. My oldest daughter, Gabrielle, got her license.
Oh, boy.
And she has a car.
Okay.
So it was old boy because she's driving my car. And it's definitely double old boy.
Hurry up and quick and go to the car lot.
So I got her license. So she's driving, but now it's just different level of anxiety, and your baby girl's out there.
Yeah.
Growing
up fast, man.
Oh, my goodness. So definitely excited because then it's like, hey, go to the store, go get this. So it's beneficial. So we'll see, man. So it's been good.
That's awesome.
How about you? What's going on in the Rogers household?
So this is the first holiday. Dexter's 11.
Yeah.
But he's always been like every kid, right? They got their money. They earn some money, but they always want to spend your money. This is the first Christmas holiday that he's very purpose driven about. I want to make sure these are my gifts to mom, dad, and family and friends. And so it was a proud moment for a few reasons. One, he understood how money works, and you're cognitive of, I want this for myself, but I also want to do for others. So we set him up. He has a little bank account now, and shout out to the Whiteland School area. They do this thing, Biz Market, out on 74th Street. They got Biz Town to take the kids, and so the last couple of months of the school year, right before Christmas break, I had the opportunity to go into school with some other parents and teachers, and we interviewed the fifth grade students. And so we interview them for 3 jobs that they apply for. This Biz Market, they have everything. They have flight attendants, an airplane. They got, cell forces there at Huntington Bank. They got all these different jobs that you apply for and go through this interview process. So last week they went there. So they were teaching about money, how the system works, right, within the real world of business. And so he was a CFO. He got the job as CFO of the hospital. And so he's like, a couple of days before, he's like, what does a CFO do? I was like, this is a great opportunity to talk about, not just cash flow and like money, how you make money, but the expenses, which, a kid at 5th grade, they don't understand the expenses of life. They understand, you make money. You're always gone, Dad. You're traveling, you're speaking, and you get paid when you do this and that. But they don't understand the expenses. So I got to tell them about the expenses of just business. Like you got a mortgage if you own your own building, or if not, you got to rent. Like you got lights to pay. You got to control all this. You oversee the finances of all your people. So you got to make sure that everybody on your team is getting paid. Right. But then you got to make sure people are paying you. And I said, sometimes in certain hospitals, you got a little bit 30-day, net 30, what that looks like and how you implement. So it was an interesting conversation of some guide time, being able to talk business over the holidays, but also show him a new level of life that he's interested in 2026 for himself. But it was meaningful. He got me a couple of cool little gifts, man. It was like, that means something because I know it ain't just from the wife. Family member that put his name on there. He went out there and did that. And so that was cool.
That's awesome.
To be able to go through on that. A lot has happened since we last talked.
Yes.
And we left off talking a little bit and really encouraging people, not just for like self-evaluations, business evaluations. Talked about the gifts and all those different things, some positive encouragement before the holiday. But a lot of sports has happened. My Buckeyes got their butt beat, dominated by IU. The Hoosiers are, in the championship game. And who would have thunk of that? Mark Cuban's dropping millions and millions over in Bloomington. Who would have thunk that would ever happen? But also, we were excited for about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
You got it on your chest right now. I got to bring it up.
Yeah, representing.
We got to bring it up because in January in 2026, change often comes up. We're going to change some things. I'm not a huge New Year's resolution guy. I don't do the whole resolution type deal. But sometimes people think change is always necessary. I want to deep dive into this First episode back, if we want to call this season 2 of Champion Blueprint, the podcast. Again, Gary Brackett, I'm George Rogers. Today, I want to dive in on this subject because I really want to talk. We're not sports driven, but I believe what happened with the Indianapolis Colts this year, from triumph to Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor, the defense was doing great, offense was doing great, special teams. We were moving. We're 7-1, and then we became the first team that to go 1-7 and miss out on playoffs. I believe there's over 95% of the chance that we're going to make the playoff after week 8, and then it all come crashing down. And when something like that happens, let's be honest, I was one of them. Like, change has to happen.
Yeah.
Like something has to move.
Heads have to roll.
Like something has to go. And I'm not the type of person, because I know what it feels like for somebody to call for your job or want your job. So I never try to take bread or money off anybody's table. But what does that change look like? And this is something that I feel like you can speak passionately to. Being a player. That maybe a GM or a coach is saying, hey, he's lost his stuff. He's been banged up. It's towards the end of his career. Should we start pivoting? Do we need to bring in a young cat? That Gary can train up and be replaced. How does this change work? Because a lot of people, family, friends, and I know you got them as well. We talked a little bit. How do you handle change when change isn't what's received in the perspective of the fans' eyes?
Yeah.
Right? Let's talk about that, because I think change is happening. I think change is necessary, but sometimes we don't perceive, the perception of the change doesn't look like we want it to. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think oftentimes people at the top, they feel the pressure from their fans, because ultimately, we look at it as, from professional athlete, at least I did, as you kind of work for the fans, right? I mean, they're kind of the reason that we got the jobs that we have, because they're coming out, showing up, supporting. You will be lying if you said I don't listen to the fans. Right? I mean, everyone listens to the fans. However, what they see is not necessarily what you see. And oftentimes, I think NFL teams and businesses in general, they're too quick to make change just for change's sake. And a lot of times you realize, and I have as seasoned business owner, that the grass isn't always greener. There's not a guarantee that if you make a change, that the new group coming in is actually going to do any better than the group that's currently here.
It reminds me of, shout out to Lee Corso. Not so fast, my friend.
Hey!
They're not so fast. The grass is not greener on the other side always. The grass is ultimately greener where you water it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, that's the process you're talking about. Sometimes watering the grass, it takes a while to change the soil. And so, leaving or, trying to cancel out or make a drastic change isn't necessarily always what's needed. And I'll say this. In the beginning, especially after listening to Miss Irsay talk, and really articulate, why she's making the decision, and listen, there's gonna be change. Like, she's very stern. There's change. There's change there, and it's a different mindset. Like, even Ballard, interview, his mindset was different, and I think it's important that what I saw from Miss Irsay was, this ain't a time to panic. Like, we saw something grow. We saw something different this year in the first 8 weeks that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. And so there isn't a time for us to panic. It's really a time, in my perspective, the difference between panicking and making a drastic change is the difference between a great leader who has a blueprint, right? Let's plug in Champion Blueprint, the podcast. When you have a good blueprint, you don't need to panic. You just have to pivot. Right? You got to be able to pivot in those situations.
And also, I think great leaders, they factor failure into that blueprint, right? There's every year there's only one team that comes home with a championship. So there's 31 other teams that feels like they should make a change, or at least 10 teams for sure who didn't make the playoffs or whatever that number is. So I think you just have to caution yourself, and because of the injuries, because of some things that hopefully are one-time events, they really have made progress this year. They found themselves a quarterback. Obviously, he had an Achilles injury, so we're expecting him back in the beginning of the year. Jonathan Taylor, probably the most talented back in the league. They still got a nucleus of offensive line, defensive linemen. I think they need a few more pieces, but I think to have wholesale changed, I think would have been premature. And just based on what you see around the league, other teams changing year in, year out. I think Oakland Raiders is a good example. I don't know how many years in a row now they got a new coach.
Man, they got 6 coaches, like $50 million
that they still paying for.
They're paying for,
right?
To sit at home.
And I don't think that necessarily affects the salary cap.
Hey Gary, let's get you as a head coach,
man. Exactly.
Just for a year.
I've been thinking about it, like, man, So it doesn't always like benefit the organization to make that change. And I think, like you said, doubling down, reaffirming, making changes, but make an adjustment with some people that are there for continuity's sake, because I feel like you're close.
Yeah. Let's break these down. I want to break it down to 5 different segments, if you will, and really talk about why this decision really matters, because I think it's a reflection. As you said, this is beyond football. Like, our discussion, we're talking about like how this applies really to life. This applies to every ship. First episode, everything that we talk about can really apply to your friendships, your business ships, your relationships, like in marriage and in life. But why it really matters, and one of those things is like this wasn't about excuses. Because as you said, 32 teams in the league, only one is hosting the trophy. So everybody can come up with plenty of excuses. Absolutely. Right? Everybody's banged up. Ain't nobody 100% at this time and point in the season. So how do you play through that adversity? How do you play through those struggles? This wasn't about the setting. This wasn't about whether or not they had the right plan or motivation or inspiration. It was bigger than that. Can you talk a little bit about why this decision matters when a leader makes a change, but it's not the change that everybody wants?
Yeah, I think it matters because a lot of times the organization, there's these rumblings around, and people are assuming something's going to get done, right? Because you're hearing the outside noise, and it just makes everyone feel uneasy. You can't really do your job to the best of your ability when you think that the guy who's leading you might not be there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think by you making a change and as early as she did, it really just reaffirms a lot of things in the locker room because, guys are making a decision whether or not they're going to sign a new contract and re-up.
Yeah.
And that's based a lot on, who's going to be in those positions. Do they think they can win a championship? Yeah, guys get paid, they're playing a kid's game. They get a king's ransom. But ultimately, guys want to win. Yeah. So they want to be in an organization with coaches where they think they can win with.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said, and I wrote it down on my cheat notes here, is this was not about like evaluating progress, or this was about evaluating progress, not just outcomes, right? Like there's been progress. You talked about Daniel Jones coming in his first year, looked great. One for himself, coming from the Giants and spent a little bit of time, a few weeks over in Minnesota before the offseason, coming to the Colts. He looked phenomenal. Yeah. A student of the game underneath this offense. And so we saw offensive growth with our players and development. Jonathan Taylor was on beast mode. Yeah, I thought he's about to break the record. Things happen amongst that. And so we talk about evaluating progress and not just the outcome of things. Like, how do you do that? And then another thing that really kind of stuck out, and this is something that I want to say to all leaders, is that great leaders don't evaluate people by one result or only results. You really evaluate people by their trajectory. Like, where are they going? Where are they headed? Yeah. Are they becoming who we want them to be and who they desire to be at the same time? How are we empowering them? How are we elevating them? How are we delegating things to make them stronger, to be able to stretch their giftings and their talents? Are they using their strengths and their talents to pursue what they desire? So evaluating those things are really important. The second thing was what fan sees. And this is good, right? Yeah. The perspective of what fan sees versus what a leader sees. And I think it's different. And I look at this as a relationship factor, right? I can judge somebody's marriage or relationship based on what I only see on social media. Right. And in one case, it looks like, man, they got their stuff together. I want to look up to them. I want to talk to them. Until you go into the house and you realize, man, this is not what I see.
A train wreck.
Right? It's a train wreck. Sometimes what we see on the field, even in basketball, sometimes we see on the court, Pacers went from the finals to a struggling season, top 5 pick. That's what I'm cheering for. Listen, do what we got to do. I wanted to be competitive, but sometimes what we see internally and what we don't see internally truly matters. For fans that see the outcome and not the trajectory of what is really going on in the practices, in the meeting rooms. I mean, for me, that matters most. Sometimes we don't produce. Sometimes we don't hit our sales goal in business. But man, I see the urgency. I see the desire that somebody's doing in the office when nobody's watching, and that's really what matters to me as an operating owner. I care more about what people don't see than what people do see, and they try to judge it off of because they don't see the grind that goes on. They don't see the pain.
And a lot of times, I think that outcome doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the games that they lost by a field goal at the end of the game. I mean, it's challenging. I mean, that's the league, right? A lot of times the game comes down to that final possession, and unfortunately, it didn't bounce our way, those last few games. But, we're if you look at the spread, we're 14 points away from being a playoff team.
Right.
Yep. So I think it's just like you said, some of the things that they don't see, and they just say, "Oh, this is our final record. This is the teams that we lost to." Yes, those are correct. But if you really take a deeper dive, I think we're a lot closer than people think. Yeah. And I think by starting from ground zero, I think would not yield us better results than staying the course.
Yeah. So while fans see missed playoffs, they see inconsistency at times in certain players, or maybe it's the scheme. We play this way one time, then we're not aggressive when we feel like, it's always easy to be aggressive on the TV screen.
No, for sure.
Listen, I got season tickets, and sometimes it's easy for me to see. I sit in the end zone area because I like to see the full development, and I'm thinking, why don't they run this play right here? But I don't see what they see or feel. Yeah. Sometimes it's the feel that we as fans don't see. We don't feel the energy on the sidelines that a coach feels. And the language that's going on, like where's the energy at? But we see missed playoffs. We see those inconsistencies. We see close losses. As you said, 14-point difference in a lot of those games that can matter against a Houston, against a Jacksonville Jaguar, a play or two here and there, although it's never just one or two plays, right, that really matter. I think about what a leader sees, and I'm thinking about it from a owner's perspective. I'm thinking about it from a GM's perspective. I'm thinking about it now from a coach's perspective. Of development. I see a young QB that's developing. Riley Leonard. I'll be honest. I didn't see the game he had. I know there ain't a lot of footage. Once there was some game film on the defensive play a little bit different. But I saw the growth in a rookie kid that got an opportunity to play, that last game. I saw growth and development from a different Daniel Jones. The Daniel Jones I saw year 1, 2, and 3 with the Giants versus the injured Daniel Jones and the Daniel Jones without an offensive line over there.
Right.
Saw that development. Leaders, we see new systems taking place and implemented. And sometimes we have this goal. That's the desire that we want to do. We always talk about having SOPs and systems, and processes to make those things come to pass. And putting those systems in there takes time.
Yeah.
You talk about developing a QB. You talk about developing a new employee. They don't get everything right away.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as they say, point the finger, you got 3 pointing back at you. Sometimes it's us as leaders that's not giving them the clarity that they need to understand the systems that we're trying to implement. And then you talk about the changes. I want to jump on this. When changes are made too soon, it impacts a lot.
Yeah.
Firing the wrong person who has a voice in the lunchroom, or getting rid of the leader in the team, from a sports perspective, it changes a lot. So leaders have to take in the mindset of how does this impact our culture that we're creating, and buy-in from the locker room. From the outside, it looks like a failure, but from the inside, it looks like a foundation. And I think that's what Miss Irsay is trying to say. Hey, Liz, we got a foundation that was not here a year ago.
Yep.
And I don't want to just totally uproot that just because of one failure. This is her first season, her and her sisters, to really run this ship, their way. And it takes time.
And just to take it another step further, they made investments in Sauce Gardner, right, on the defensive side of the ball.
That we have none in a while. That was a huge pickup.
Huge. He had all-pro season, despite the injuries. Some other defenses, Latu came on at defensive end. Zaire Franklin, tip of the spear, so still playing well. So I think even defensively they made strides. Obviously, a lot of injuries on that side of the ball.
Yep.
A lot of quarterbacks missed time. But I think some of those contracts that you enter into is based on your coaches and the systems that they play.
Yeah.
So if you're too fast to make a change, now all of a sudden,
you got players that may not fit the next system.
That may not fit the team that you already invested in.
Yeah.
And it's no different in business where you invest in a machine, you invest in a software, you invest in something like that.
Yep.
And then you change the person that's ahead of that system. Now all of a sudden the other people don't want it.
Use.
Now you got to go out and redo it and get another system.
Yep.
So sometimes it's best to kind of like look what you have, kind of make some conversations, make changes, no question.
Yep.
But I think by you then reaffirming people, I think they have a stronger sense of belonging to a place that's just not going to get rid of them at any sign of adversity.
Yeah. And so there's a cost of starting over.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the lesson. Like there's a cost to that. This directly impacts business. It directly impacts, leadership. I'm thinking about costs right now, as you talked about, but I'm thinking about like time, the new systems, the new language, the new trust that has to be built in relationships, and that bonding that has to take place. What you don't want is to always have these constant change, because it's hard. Those other organizations in sports that have this constant, it's like a revolving door. We talked about some of those teams that don't have that foundation. I think about some of the changes that happened just recently in the last couple of weeks. With the Ravens, he's been there for a solid 20 years.
Yeah, right.
The stability that they've had and the culture that they've been able to create there is great. Now, sometimes it's best for him to get a fresh start as well. But there's reasons why you don't want to just flip the switch. It's easy for people that's not invested to tell you how to spend time and how to spend money and how to make a change. But when you're invested in something, I always tell people, I won't frustrate employees because I know they're invested. People that don't get frustrated are not invested. Yeah. And so, you start thinking about those time, the energy, resetting the morale, the money that you talked about with the contracts and things like that. And then even that, the momentum that you have. How do you say time out to the momentum that you're building for a lot of these younger development kids, especially on the offensive side, that giving you reasons to believe this isn't just like the last 3 or 4 years, and there's something different about that. Because every time you reset leadership, you also reset belief. Yeah, and that's a huge hitter. The next thing I want to talk about, because firing someone, and I'll think about this. I tried my best, Gary, when we had our retail stores. I tried my best to never fire anyone. I always wanted to say, this is your responsibility to do what's right for you, right? And I'm always going to give you the opportunity to take the last shot. That's my job as a coach, as a leader. It's my responsibility to make sure you get to take the last shot. Now, if you force me to have to pull you out of the game or put you off the team, right? My fires came because a kid, took a lot of money, a couple of deposits to himself and never made it to the bank, right? So that's a fireable offense. Yeah. But I always, and I used to use this mentality of coach in, coach out, or coach over, and it got to the point now where it's like, no, this ball represents everything you desire. Whatever your dream, your goal is, you got to take your ball, right? You can play here, but these are the guardrails. This is the playbook. If this playbook doesn't fit your skills and talents and desires to where you want to be, then I want you to take your ball and go to the next play. But how can I help you there, right?
Yeah, no question.
Right? And so it was always that transition. Like, how can I transition you to somewhere where you feel like this is where I'm supposed to be?
I would tell people I am ready to give you a glowing recommendation.
Yep.
To join your new family.
Yep.
Right. And when you look at things, I will always look at them as simply there's either a won't do or a can't do.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, that's a me problem. I have the opportunity to coach you up, to give you the guidance and the skills to make sure that you're equipped to do your job.
Right.
You can't do it. But then if you won't do it, right, that's on you. Yeah. That becomes fireable. I told you to take these deposits to the bank. Yeah. You put them in your pocket and you go somewhere else.
So decisive versus reactive.
Yeah, exactly. That's something you won't do. So we got to get rid of you. And you look at a bunch of, Michigan, their head coach, right? The fireable offense. Yep. There's a bunch of things that we need to make a change immediately. Like this is like uncalled for. So I think there's definitely a difference, but making sure you understand what that difference is and how you're leading your team, your organization.
Yeah, there's this weak leader, strong leader, bad leader, good leader mentality where, you'll see bad leaders react too fast, right? They fire because of pressure. Sometimes they fire to cover their own own self, right? Like, we got to get rid of somebody. You'll see that sometimes coaches say, all right, OC, you got to go, right? And then some coaches say, I got to go because I don't want to, I'm not going to tell any of my guys because I'm ride or die with them. Yep. You see sometimes it's, it's the coaching that trying to fire to avoid coaching, to avoid the strong conversations at times that need to take place. But strong leaders, I always say this, and I want to speak more towards the strong leaders because I think when it comes to strong leaders, where you have to coach someone to another team, right, or you have to make the decision that this is what you can do versus what you won't do, as you said, is clarity on expectations have to be there, right? Good leaders, strong leaders do that. Strong leaders coach hard, and coach with love and empathy, but also understanding that there's discipline to the craft and what is expected for them. And then support. How can I support you to grow? What is it that I need to do as a leader to support you? What resources do we as a company need to provide you to be the best you have, right? So I want to take any excuse off the table that we're not here for you. What can I do? Where can I be? What can we give you to be the best that you want to be on that? Because I believe it's a quote that I read. It's, if your first solution is termination, you might be managing, not leading.
Right.
If your first solution, if the first thing comes to your mind is, I got to get rid of this person, get somebody in here who can do the job, what is it that you need to do, right? It's the mentality. When I find fault in all I see, maybe it's time to find the fault in me, right?
I love that.
On that one. So to wrap this up, because I want to wrap this up real quickly, locker room perspective. This is equivalent of, I call it lunch breaks perspective. This is where you really shine. This is where things really come evident, bringing credibility into the house, if you will. In the NFL, you don't rebuild culture every year, right? I think about Detroit. They went 13-2, and then all of a sudden it's a different. They're 8-9 this year,
right?
And so but the culture is the culture. They lost the OC to the Chicago Bears. All of a sudden, the Chicago Bears are in the playoffs, and then look at like this culture. You don't change this every year, but because of people, it changes, right? So the culture changes, but you don't change the structure of what you desire to build in that. How do you adjust it though? Because you have to adjust in order to grow, right? Through different seasons. What are some takes that you have that you personally use to make sure, hey, this is the culture? Under Tony Dungy, the culture was a culture. But how do we continue to grow?
So the biggest thing, and if you are in charge of people, if you manage people, if you hire, if you fire, you understand this. On the outside, and it always look like something is happening. Just make a change, let that person go. But what people don't know, or what they don't realize, is that there's not a lot of other people that's available out there that are viable options.
Yep.
So that's why it's extremely important that on you becoming a better leader, on you creating buy-in, or you reaffirming some people, I think you get better employees from that stance versus always, like you said, being reactive, always firing people, bringing somebody else in. Because they're going to know that they're on a short lease and they're not going to do everything. So are they really going to give you 100%?
Very tentative on decision making.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, the decision sometimes is to keep still.
Yep.
Is to train more, is to get more in line on what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately when you look at history, I think that pays the most dividends. Where longevity, continuity, Signetti. We've been getting the thing with IU. One of the things he credits his success to is the continuity with his coaches.
Yep.
He lets them get off, right? He gives them pay raises when he has the opportunity. And those guys being together, speaking the same language, seeing the same things, understanding, that breeds and leads to success.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you need to think of as a leader. The grass isn't always greener.
Yep.
Right? Don't be reactive. Don't do it just because the fans or someone thinks so. Think through your decisions, right? Be wise about them and do what's best for the organization.
I think what we both got out of this, because we both say change has to happen. It does. For the 31 teams that didn't win, and even for that one that did, there still needs there's change that's going to happen. Right? The Super Bowl team for the Colts they didn't come back the same. There was changes on the team that different pieces, right? But one of the things I took away from this change with the Colts and the decision to keep leadership intact. And let's figure out how we can get healthy. Daniel Jones is going to be back, projected to be back week 1. How do we get healthy is that what they did, the Colts, and what Ms. Irsay and the team did is what a lot of businesses miss out on, is that there's certain seasons where you have to be disruptive.
Right.
Or you understand that development beats disruptive. Right? Sometimes you just get how do we continue to develop where we need to be. Understanding that, I understand that George can only take the company so far, or Gary can only take the business so far before Gary needs to hire somebody that can help him take it to the next level, or Gary needs to find a mentor or coach that's been to that level that can help him grow the business to that, right? We're always going to need somebody to help take us and elevate us to the next level, whether it's a player, whether it's another executive, whether it's, hey, I need to be mentor, I need to be coach, or I need to hire some more people that's going to get us there. Colts understood something that many people forget, and that's, hey, listen, let's be development mindset it versus disrupting the foundation that we're putting on here. And while doing that, I believe the most important thing in this all season is how do we find the balance? Right. You don't want to have an unsteady foundation when you're trying to build something. The foundation has to be, flat and level as you're building this and continue to build it, because I believe it's important for credibility. To be able to do that. And so you're not saying never fire. We're not saying never fire. We're not saying never make some changes with leadership or never make changes within your organization. But I always say this: the message is the message. The vision of the company, the mission of the company, the core values of the company, those remain the same. The method of how we sustain that, the method of how we create that culture and who we create it within the leadership, those things may change. But making change doesn't mean totally dissolving and just blowing things up. You got to make those changes and be able to pivot accordingly. Any last takes from you when it comes to making things clear, whether it's, if it's, when I think about it, I'm thinking like, how do you evaluate effort? How do you evaluate the values? Are they broken? Are they disconnected? Because now more than ever in the workplace, it's not about the company's values. It's about how does Gary values align to the company values and how do we work those together as well. But anything else for you?
Just lastly, and you talk about ships, relationships, business ships, all the ships. I think one of the big things is the whole notion of 80-20. And sometimes, you're get rid of 80 to chase that 20 that you're missing, but you got to know, like, sometimes and oftentimes it's best to deal with the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. So I think, I wish there were a lot of 100%, right? But in life there's not, right? And it involves a lot of compromise. It involves, unfortunately, a lot of setbacks, right? Like I said, 31 teams every year don't win it.
Right.
So I think you still have to push forward. It's not always about the outcome. It's about the process of how you get there. That's equally as important.
And just remember, listen, leadership isn't about the demand of you have to be patient. Leadership demands us at times to be patient. Leadership demands us at times to be, but also set a standard. I believe in leadership. We got to make sure that we don't panic. And this goes to all you. We're 3 or 4 weeks in January. Don't panic. For those who did and believe in resolutions and you set one, don't panic just because it's not working out. Stick to it. Discipline is a craft that a lot of people forsake and give up on, but you got to keep on remaining disciplined in your craft, whatever it is that you're seeking. Don't give up on it. Whatever ship you're dealing with that needs to change, doesn't need to be a pivotal change, doesn't need to be a drastic change, doesn't need to be some things that you just kind of discipline yourself. Maybe it's a little bit more time in a peaceful environment and less time on technology. Make some of those changes as you will. So before you fire someone, ask yourself, what is it that I can do to impact them and make them better? Stability isn't a weakness, my friend.
Not at all.
It's a strategy. So thank you once again. This is our first episode back. And you know what? I feel like this is like our first episode last year when we first kicked off. We went a little bit long. We don't have a set time on this. We try to keep it within the 30-minute drive that you may have on your way to work or to work or from work or on your lunch break. But as always, Gary Brackett, I'm George Rogers. We appreciate you for giving us your time. If this episode has been valuable to you, share with a family, friend member, like, share, subscribe on all the channels, platform that you choose. Until next time on Champion Blueprint Podcast, peace out.